Well, hello everyone. Welcome. So exciting to be here with you all. This is a very special edition of Zurich Talks. I'm your host, Nikki Shields, and I'm absolutely delighted that you're here with us as we tackle one of the most pressing topics of our time, really, and it is, of course, innovation. Now, all of us today have actually already lived through one of the most significant innovative moments for a generation. Now, we all know now that it takes normally 5 to 10 years to develop a vaccine. But of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it took less than one. Truly remarkable. But do we actually ever stop and think about how innovation actually happens? Yes, there are lots of brilliant ideas, of course, but how do we actually turn these ideas into a reality? How are they nurtured, incubated, and then developed? And they have to be supported from the drawing board to the real world, where they can impact and enrich our lives and ultimately help bring a brighter future to us all. Now, this edition of Zurich Talks is going to focus on the future of innovation and specifically how organizations, and that can be from a startup to a multinational, can create and foster innovation culture. Now, I'm sure you all know we've got some rather amazing speakers lined up to explore these themes today, and none more so than our headline guest. The good news is you guys will actually have the opportunity to ask some questions to our guests at the end of the session. But first, we have someone who is even more excited than myself. This is a bit of a childhood dream come true, I think. So please welcome Zurich's Group Chief Information and Digital Officer, Ericsson Chan, to introduce our headline speaker.
Great to see so many of you joined us on the Zurich Talks, talk about future and innovations. The world is changing fast. Innovation is a must. It's to thrive and to survive. It's not just to innovate for ourselves. We need to innovate for our customer to find new solutions, to make their life better, make business stronger, and make everything simpler and easier. We can't find a better person to talk about simplicity than our special guest today. He is a Silicon Valley icon. He's a legend of our digital times. He's a philanthropist. He inspires so many. This is the co-founder of Apple, Mr. Steve Wozniak. How are you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, very exciting to be here.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So let's start to talk about the early days of Apple. What was the inspiration? What was the motivation? How did you have that drive?
Well, the motivation was that I was an innovator. I was an inventor, not just an engineer. And I was extremely skilled because I worked very hard, never thinking it would be a job, to learn how to design computers, design products with very few parts. Be clever. How do you make it better? Go to sleep dreaming and wake up in the middle of the night with a solution, how to save parts. And I got in a group that was so inspired that we were going to have a revolution. We were going to change how society works when everyone had their own little computers to solve problems, to educate, to make the geek important too. That was, and I was into that. Nobody really, there wasn't much belief in it. When we started Apple, Steve Jobs and I had no savings accounts. We had no money at all. We had no rich relatives. And we were young, in our young 20s, and we had no business experience. So it really did kind of come from nothing. You got to start in the garage, you got to start in your home, and you got to start with your friends. I think of the first 10 contributors to the Apple II computer, 7 of us went to the same high school. When you have no money, it's your friends.
So for organizations like us, how can we create more thinking like how you just described? Is this something can be taught, something can be coached?
Can never be taught or coached. Some people grow up and they're kind of well-taught engineers and give them an assignment and they can do it. And some are inventors and they want to always be able to run into a laboratory and have some skills, some engineering skills to try it out. Can I get a prototype and show people and prove that this idea can be done and work? The best products tend to come about when you're building it for yourself and you want it there and you want it good. And it's something for your own life. A lot of other people that want it that way if you do it well. If it's important to you that it comes out well and usable. Wanting to do something badly, especially if you're young, you're going to learn how to do it. You're going to figure out every which way you can. And that's where the real accomplishments happen. You have to know what you love and how you feel about yourself.
A decade from now, so what will be the biggest change that you forecast? How should we prepare for this brave new world?
Some people say there might be some great things that come from quantum computers is one example. And the trouble is it hasn't been able to really solve like general needs yet, but it always could. And of course we have the big moves towards electric cars is a big one. So I think that one's going to keep growing and growing. The trends that we have now, I tend to look at trends, and if they've got enough momentum, they aren't going to be stopped, for 10 years. I think what's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of fallbacks, things that fail. A lot of the failures are going to teach us what the limitations of this brave new world are. So all I can say is believe in yourself, whatever they, tell you you're doing wrong, you should do differently. I don't know, think, you can be yourself.
I've actually got a little question for you, Steve. One thing that I think pops up quite a bit when we talk about innovation is the fear of innovation, the fear of maybe not finding the innovation, the fear of failing. Did you ever come up against that in your career?
It's really strange, but in the highlight of my career, never once a failure. Every project turned into an A+. When you're doing something innovative, it's new, it hasn't been done before, that's the hardest thing in life. And as soon as you've done it and shown it can be done, everybody, who's got enough of the technical smarts says, oh my gosh, I can do this, it's so easy. But until it's done, you work and work, not knowing if you're going to get there or not. And those are the things that we innovators love to do. Yeah. That's our joy in life. And the harder it is, when you accomplish it, the joy that comes into you. And you just know, this is who I am, if you're one of those.
Love it. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to put it now to the floor. If you would like to raise your hand, we will get a question out to you.
I'm Analino from Brazil. What would be your approach towards ways technologies can positively impact sustainability and climate change?
That comes from the people who are most into climate change, having the interest in it, and they know that they have technologists and technology around them. Look at the studying we're doing, like from satellites, just to explore, what's going on with our atmosphere, with our rivers, our lakes.
I think you're quite involved yourself, right, in sustainability. You have created a platform for sustainability.
In space. I'm with a space company. We have satellite launches planned and everything, and we have our products, and we're making big waves in the space community. And we're called Privateer because space is really going to private companies, and we're going to be up there to really map it and understand it and relay messaging between people so we know where a lot of the junk is. There's just too much up there. And it's growing exponentially, and you have to plan. Everything in our life depends on satellites, GPS and weather reports and everything like that, and communications depend on satellites. Those satellites have to launch, and if they're launching through dangerous areas to get to where they're going. Knowledge is the starting point.
Love it. I mean, I know, Steve, you said that we can't replicate brains yet, but when we do, can we please make sure we replicate your brain first? I feel like that would be fair for everyone. Can we have another question from the audience? If you raise your hand.
Hi, Steve. My name is Daniela. I'm from Italy. Any piece of advice, if you were to sum it up in one key message for the next generation, maybe not the next generation of nerds, but maybe generally the next generation, what really matters when it comes to be innovative, when it comes to be being a free spirit, being creative?
Be honest, learn total honesty, and don't try to change how you say things to make yourself sound good and seem good. Just, prove it by doing. And also have a philosophy early in life about life is not about accomplishments and making money. Life is about happiness. How happy are you? How many good times do you have? And my formula I came up with when I was, before 20 years old was happiness is smiles, things you feel, minus frowns, things you feel. So I put it in emotional, and I call it H equals S minus F.
Finally, a formula I can actually understand. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions, if you'd like to raise your hands?
My name is Frank. I work in the tech department of Zurich. We have a lot of people also in the audience who are in startups and trying to work as an entrepreneur. Would you have any advice for them how to become successful as an entrepreneur and an innovator, or even become the next Steve Wozniak?
There's different aspects of it. Entrepreneurship are people that want to be important, and that comes from starting companies. Steve Jobs was very much an entrepreneur. And I myself was not. I was extremely skilled, and I could create the product for a company. But when we were offered the big money to start Apple with my Apple II computer, our investor said I had to leave my job at Hewlett-Packard that I loved. I was going to be an engineer for life at Hewlett-Packard, never move up an org chart. He said I had to leave Hewlett-Packard, and we had a meeting date to decide, and I said no. I wasn't going to give my computer to the startup for the money, the big money. And Steve Jobs went into a frenzy, and he got all my relatives to call me. And finally, a friend talked me into the key thing. He said, you can start a company, and you don't have to run it. You can just be an engineer for life. And that's what I needed. You should have an engineer that they're used to solving those problems with you. You should be side by side with one. Here's what I can build. They'll be so clever at coming up with what you're going to do as an entrepreneur. But I think entrepreneurs are the most important thing in the world, in business, because they're starting up the new companies, new ideas, new inspirations, and that's what takes us further. If we just do the same things, we don't move forward. We just stay where we are. So that's very important. But to me, having a startup, starting a little company and taking a risk and you're not sure you're going to get there, you work so hard. It's so important to the few people that start a company and are entrepreneurs. And you work your head off, and when you get done, it's like the most joy ever in the world if you have any success. Even if you don't have success, that was a fun time in life.
Well, I feel like we've just covered the surface. It does actually draw an end to this session, but it has been so inspiring, absolutely extraordinary to hear your story, Steve. Thank you very much, Ericsson Chan, for talking us through it. Huge round of applause, everyone, for Steve Wozniak. So now what we're going to do is actually hear what innovation means in practice at Zurich. Now, one example you may have already heard of is the Zurich Innovation Championship. Now, this is a competition to find the best new ideas for our industry, which has been established really to provide a forum where brilliant, innovative ideas can combine with the experience, the expertise, and support of an established multinational organization to really help develop, help refine, and ultimately bring them to market as well. So we are going to hear from some of the startups who are in the process of translating their ideas into a business reality at Zurich. Those 12 winners have just been announced, and they are working towards testing and validating their initiative alongside the company. And they are really here to bring their ideas to life and ultimately go to the implementation stage. The thing that we're looking at really is combining the most promising ideas with mentoring, market knowledge, and financial support of Zurich. So we are delighted. We will be welcoming the winners to this event today. They're joining us up on stage in a minute. But first, let's hear a little bit about what they do.
The 2022 Zurich Innovation Championship winners were selected from over 2,000 entries across the globe. As they explore their solutions, these unique ideas will create the future of insurance, one of versatility, agility, and sustainability.
Inspiration is not something that you get up in the morning and say, today I'm going to be inspired. You basically need to listen.
Inspiration's always been when we have a customer problem that is tough to crack.
When something really has an impact in people's life, that is powerful. It is not about technology or the design. It's about improving everyday problems.
That truly makes a difference once you're able to quantify the impact of your idea on an existing industry and an existing customer base, or on something completely new.
Insurance and technology are two unlikely words to come together. This will bring opportunities, but only for those players who have future-proofed themselves.
If you want to establish a new brand, a new standard, if you want to change the way the business is made, you must have the courage to go through your idea until the very end.
Once you established the product and you have something and you validated your idea and you see traction, you have to take the product worldwide, go to market. You have to have a team that shares a vision, because the vision, this is the only thing that is left. And this is how startup is.
But I feel like we have to go deep into the problem and understand the problem at the root cause if we were to design a lasting solution, solving some complex problems and creating something that can have a much wider impact in the world.
We want to serve customers globally. We want to support them having better services for their customers around the globe. We give them the possibility to find the right solutions for the younger generations.
We want to be able to take on this very big challenge, but we have to go all out. It's a combination of the right team, the right set of cultural values.
It's been great meeting all the other 11 participants in the program. The common denominator is that there's a lot of ambitious, enthusiastic and people with a lot of drive. And the ultimate goal to come up to a solution where we potentially could do something fantastic together.
The work that we're doing with Zurich is absolutely changing lives. You really feel like you're a partner, and I think that's a pretty unique experience for an entrepreneur.
Zurich's accelerator phase is now preparing these incredible innovators to continue their journey and bring their initiatives to life, together with Zurich.
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to say the 12 championship winners are now joining me up on stage. I think you will agree that everyone here is a very quick thinker and creative innovator. And basically what we want to do is tap into their minds. We're going to do a bit of a quick fire round. So what we've done is we've asked the winners to gather into groups based on the category of the competition that they entered. So we've got prevention and mitigation over here. We've got the sustainability guys behind me. Simplicity on my left, and over on the far left, we've got Team Insurance Reimagined. And what we're going to do is give each of them a word on innovation and ask them what it means to them. So we're going to kick off over here in this direction, and we're going to talk about inspiration. Now, Sean from One Concern, you're going to start. One Concern is a company that uses digital analysis to create risk insights for natural disasters. Super important, but inspiration. Was there a kind of, eureka moment, I suppose, when you started your business?
Sure. So our CEO and co-founder, Ahmed Wani, found himself on the roof of his family house, escaping a flood in Kashmir. Right? And in that moment, he was looking around and came to the conclusion there must be a better way. There must be a way to make disasters less disastrous. And that led us down a path of focusing on dependency risk, focusing on infrastructure fragility, and getting to a place where we can improve resilience, which is our foundation message.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's that moment really that gives you the drive going forward. Shruti, your business, Adapt Ready, better enabling insurers to develop risk insights through machine learning. What was it that inspired you to come up with your idea?
Well, as Steve Wozniak said, the satisfaction you get when solving a problem. I'm an intrinsic problem solver who loves to take on complex issues that can have a wide-ranging impact. Before Adapt Ready, while I used to work on the insurance buyer side along with corporate risk managers, I recognized how so many companies were struggling to understand their own supply chain risk. Then I began to look for solutions, not satisfied with what was available. I started to build one myself and created a game-changing supply chain intelligence platform.
Thank you. And David, your company, Bina AI, using AI and selfie technology to give everyone access to health and wellness monitoring. Again, what was that eureka moment? Did you have one?
So I usually work on inspiration when I cook, and as you can see, I've been working a lot on inspiration. I think that when you take a look at the real numbers, according to the World Health Organization, about half of the world lacks access to essential health services. And when we talk about health, everything starts with the ability of measuring the most simple vital signs. So we wanted to make sure that everyone that owns a smartphone, a laptop, or a tablet will be able to actually get his vital signs just out of the phone.
Amazing. So,
not that romantic, but works.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm now going to move on behind me to our USP is the word here, unique selling point. Eugene, tell us, you're from Keepers AI, all about building a safe digital world for children and peace of mind for parents. What's your USP?
Well, we've created a technology to protect your kids from cyberbullying. It's completely transparent, runs on your kid's device, and you as a parent get the insight, the required insights to properly educate them and prepare them for real life.
Fantastic. Anything that will bring me peace of mind when you've got two boys, I'm in. Norbert, if you could tell us about Caruso, putting connected car data to work from a single trusted source, making mobility safer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Caruso's USP is that we give multi-brand access in a very easy way to consumers. And we combine that with a deep industry knowledge, especially in the insurance industry. And by the way, we do that without any additional hard and software.
Thank you. And Luca from Guaranteezy, all about making warranties simpler for customers.
Well, you know, when I buy something, I always lose the ticket. I never read the warranties that come in the box. I lose the box, and probably you do the same. So we built a service to automatically store all this information in a single place, and you'll find all your warranties, no matter where you buy your product from. So you can enjoy your products, no worries, no matter what happens.
Love it. Brilliant. I mean, I have the warranties, but they're somewhere in the house. I can never actually find them when I need them. I feel like my life's going to be better already from speaking to everyone. Right, we're talking about collaboration here. Let me jump over this side. Michele, your company called Democrats. Basically, it's about bringing insurance to underinsured or those without insurance, the populations across emerging markets. And tell us, this is all about collaboration.
Yeah, everyone at Zurich is so involved in making this initiative a success. It's incredible to see such a big corporate and everyone collaborating and laser focused on one idea. In the end, what we're doing here is really to democratize insurance. That is Democrats' mission and really at the core of everything we do.
So we will all benefit from democratizing insurance. Thank you very much. Pass it over to Gino from Lisa InsurTech, which is all about automating the full claim settlement process for insurance to improve customer satisfaction. Tell us, collaborating. I think obviously let's talk about the collaboration that's been going on with you and Zurich so far.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having us. And collaboration is very important because we are building a better society using collaboration. So right now, corporate with a startup doing collaboration are building bigger things. And with Zurich, we are building the next generation about claims, handling automatically with empathy, with that in just seconds. So we are improving the process in order to bring more benefit for the insurers as well.
Thank you. And over to Itamar here from Anagogue, which is all about helping companies give customer hyper-personalized experience while protecting users' personal data. What's the sort of the biggest and most important experience that you've got from collaborating with Zurich so far?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. You just described exactly what we do. And I think the option to collaborate with Zurich enabled us to prove that personalization and privacy can coexist by providing a very personalized customer experience to your app's users and still fully protecting their private data. This is definitely gave us a huge advantage about that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so our last but not least, of course, word is reality check. And this really is it's the opportunity for you guys to give a bit of feedback to Zurich about how you think they could become more innovative. Patrick, kick it up for us from Dynamics. Monitoring complex energy consumption to enable actionable carbon reduction roadmaps. Thanks for that one. Talk us about what feedback would you like to give Zurich?
Well, sustainability should have happened yesterday. And I think with collaboration, innovation can happen. And we can be helpful to building relationships to strengthen our collective net zero journey.
So as much as you're using Zurich, get Zurich to use you.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, there we are. All right. So Matt, Salient is your company using machine learning to forecast next year's weather, which I'm, again, fascinated about. I did mention it's because I wanted to plan my wardrobe for the summer, but I'm sure there are many other good reasons that we can plan our weather. Talk us through, again, this reality check. We're all friends here. You can give some feedback to Zurich.
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of us up on stage, we raised a lot of money. And the moment you raise money from an investor, the clock is ticking. So it's almost like we're working on a different clock speed than big companies like Zurich. So I think, my reality check would be work with us, help you, right? We need to get to that use case, that budget, that champion, that sponsor, those resources really quickly. That's the best way that you can help us to help you.
Thank you. And then finally, Nicholas, if you could tell us, so Deedster is all about tackling climate change with positive deeds and sustainable lifestyles. Again, do you have some feedback there for Zurich on the collaboration and, the reality check?
Yes, I'd say embrace risk. Big insurance is very much about mitigating, eliminating risk, whereas innovation is about taking risks. Figure out what that really means to Zurich.
Brilliant. Thank you. And actually, I don't want to leave you guys out because it's important to give feedback to Zurich. Don't worry, you are still one of the 12. Doesn't matter what you say. Who wants to take this?
I'll take it. I think that my insight is for Zurich, keep on promoting these innovation programs. Don't stop. Force innovation to happen through repetitive attempts again and again and again. Bring us in, take it into your daily activity, keep on going with the innovation programs. We're meeting the local innovation teams and the central innovation teams on a daily basis. Definitely there's a basic core that you can continue to rely on.
Brilliant, thank you. So keep on pushing when it comes to innovation. You can't really do enough. Who's going to take this one? Eugene.
Right. Always hire the best, usually Israelis. And don't forget to fail. Don't be afraid to fail.
There you are, employee number one over here. Thank you, Eugene. And who's going to take this? Yeah, yeah, sure. You could both go.
So everyone here represents a new opportunity, a new way to take something forward, right, for Zurich. Whether it's a new business line or it's a new product offering, it's a new digital engagement platform, a new way to engage with clients or to bring something forward. Sometimes it's simplification, sometimes it's complication. All of that calls for change, right? So what I'd say is embrace the change and bring the boldness.
Well, huge thank you to our 12 winners here. Really, really interesting, I think, to hear everyone's point of view when it comes to innovation. So I think let's give them a massive round of applause and wish them all the best for the future. Thank you. If you do actually want to meet any of our winners, they will be heading to the Innovation Fair, which is taking place in the hub on the first floor. So, you have the opportunity to catch up with them then. So, if you guys would like to take a seat now, thank you very much. So now we are absolutely delighted to actually welcome on stage one of our previous success stories that has come from the Zurich Innovation Championship back in 2019. A company called Zesty AI. They're working with Farmers Insurance in North America. And I'm very excited to introduce the founder and CEO, Attila Toth. Come and join us, Attila. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Nikki.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Does seeing the 12 winners there bring back memories of when you were part of the championship?
Amazing memories.
So I think...
And some goosebumps.
Yeah, I bet. You don't have to feel nervous anymore, it's over. Tell us a bit more, though, about what Zesty AI does, who you guys are, and what was that really innovative idea?
It's going to be hard to do justice to introducing an AI company after what I heard from Woz. But let me try to give justice to it, okay? So Zesty AI is focused on risk analytics. So we leverage artificial intelligence to understand real estate risk. Why real estate? Real estate is the largest store of wealth in the world. So that's number one. Number two, we all have personal connections to real estate, right? For most of us, the largest asset that we will own is our homes. Real estate is being impacted by natural disasters, wildfires, hailstorms, floods, hurricanes. And we are seeing a lot of that value being at stake, but also we are seeing livelihoods of people being at stake. So what's the role of insurance in this? Insurance is struggling to understand the impact of natural disasters on property because insurance traditionally relies on property data that is pretty sparse and sometimes gathered from very costly inspections. And that's where we are trying to pull a little bit of a Google, right? So we are using satellite imagery, we are using imagery from low-flying aircraft, and we are training computer and vision models to understand not dogs, but understand roofs, understand vegetation, understand all those risk factors of every single home and every single business that contribute to risk from climate change. And we do that in a way that the models are very transparent. So we are not just saying, here's how you underwrite a property or here's how you rate a property, but we also explain what are those mitigation opportunities for a homeowner to decrease her risk, right? Change that roof, decrease dry brush around your property. So think about this as a little bit like Minecraft for insurance.
Okay.
But it's a little bit different because here people's lives are at risk.
So what's the relationship been like with Zurich since you first met?
Yeah, it has been an amazing journey. So for the first innovation championship that we participated in 2019, our use case that we presented in front of the XCOM was about leveraging artificial intelligence to better understand wildfire risk. And to do that from the sky, from satellites, completely in an automated fashion. And my home state, California, in 2019, was reeling from 2 bad years of wildfires where entire towns were just wiped out by wildfires. So many insurers were running for the exits because they did not know how to insure this risk. So when we were sitting in front of the XCOM, and I'm seeing a lot of XCOM members here from 3 years ago, we presented this idea and how technology can change the understanding of this risk. And the defining moment was for me when Mr. Mario Greco turned to Mr. Jeff Daly, who is the CEO of Farmers Insurance. Farmers Insurance is part of the Zurich Group, one of the largest property insurers in North America. And Jeff Daly said, I think this is worth a shot. And it was an amazing feeling for a startup CEO coming out of the meeting. And I had an email from Jeff Daly saying, how fast can you get to Los Angeles to talk about this? So that was a defining moment. We got there 3 years later. So
how fast did you get there?
We got there pretty fast. Pretty fast. We sat down with the leadership team, and 3 years later, so fast forward, what has happened? So today, our relationship with Farmers and Zurich is on steroids. Thanks to the partnership, now Farmers has opened up the wildfire risk markets. They are offering fairly priced wildfire risk to tens of thousands of Californians that would not be available otherwise. We have done the first regulatory filing for an AI model. Regulators think that AI is black box. With Farmers, we have been able to file those models. And also, I'm very proud to say that we have been able to change the lives of a lot of people. And this would have not been possible without our participation in the Zurich Innovation Championship.
Amazing. What an amazing example of how innovation can be such a success. Atina, thank you. We could talk to you for hours, but we're running out of time. So Atina, I'm going to say a huge, huge thank you to you for joining us and sharing with everyone here exactly what you've been up to over the last couple of years, and wish you all the best in the future. Huge round of applause for Attila and also the 12 winners as well. So next up, we are going to be hearing about how embracing and incubating innovation and the best creativity of new startups can be supported by the depth of experience of a more established organisation like Zurich. But there is also the question of how major companies approach innovation more broadly. So within an organisation, how do you create an innovation culture, particularly in a culture which embraces change and new ways of thinking throughout the business? So joining me now are three thought leaders in this space, business executives who lead on this every day in their respective organizations. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Barbara Fry, Executive Vice President of Industrial Automation at Schneider Electric, Dr. Alex Osterwalder, co-founder and CEO of Strategizer, and Wendy Liu, CEO of Zurich Integrated Benefit Solution. Welcome, guys. It's been a good session so far.
Yeah.
Very good. Saving the best till last, though, of course.
Very good.
Sorry, Steve. Alex, if you could kick us off, because I think innovation, all companies like to say they're innovative, right? Well, everyone talks about it, but what really does make a company stand out from the rest?
It's very simple, it's the results. Do they constantly reinvent themselves and churn out new projects that make money? Or if I formulate in a more elegant way, do they create value for customers and for their business in a new way constantly? Right? Because every company has small innovations, but they don't constantly reinvent themselves. That's the hard part in companies today.
Okay, interesting. And I suppose also the role of the CEO as well is so critical.
So innovation doesn't happen when the senior leadership is not involved. They don't need to pick the ideas, but they need to create the ecosystem for ideas to bubble up from the bottom. And it's actually not about ideas, it's about supporting the teams and projects to try out things. And many of those will fail. And if that is not understood at the very top and the ecosystem isn't built, you called that innovation culture before, it just can't happen. So innovation happens bottom up with the top-down support.
Brilliant, brilliant. Barbara, first of all, I've got to say a huge congratulations because you have won 4 awards for innovation at the CES this year. Huge congratulations, all about sustainability. But tell us about your sustainability journey and how do you stay innovative? How do you keep being innovative?
So we started the whole journey on sustainability already in the year 2000, so more than 20 years ago. And at that time, we were a bit a strange animal. Nobody really was caring about it so much. And in 2005, we were launching our first sustainability barometer. And some people were saying, is it really worth the paper you are printing on it? And I think today we are top notch. But it's really a recent development that people acknowledge this kind of achievement. But it was really the great belief of the CEO at that time, if you want to be a sustainable company in the sense of long term, it's not only the profits, the financial figures, it's the people, it's the environment, and the change and the impact you have on it. And to keep it up, we also keep it high on our agenda. So just last week, I had a leadership meeting in the south of France, and we were talking about the different scopes. I don't know if you're familiar. There is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and specifically the scope 3, which is not in your hands, which comes from your supplier. And on the other side, what you do with your products at the customer side, that's more difficult to tackle. And we had a passionate discussion about it, how to tackle really now this downstream part of scope 3. And you could see the emotions also brought up some innovative ideas how to tackle it.
It must be very satisfying if it was so hard at the beginning to then suddenly, be praised for it, particularly now it's being rewarded with it as well with the awards.
Thank you.
Very exciting. Wendy, can you tell us a bit more about how Zurich specifically actually goes about fostering this innovation culture that we keep talking about, and what strategies are you implementing to adopt them?
I would say that from an innovation culture perspective, it would be 2 elements that are really important. First one is the mindset. Mindset, not just the leadership, but also the entire team. To be able to persevere through the ups and the downs. I think that requires, the team to enjoy and not be afraid to disrupt and take the risk, for leadership to support and create that safe place for people to feel comfortable and safe to take the risk. And at the same time, you need the culture and the team to also enjoy the risk-taking and the ups and downs in that journey. I would say mindset is the first one. Second one is very important, is this test and learn culture we heard quite a lot today. So how do we innovate? Innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not about us imagining what will be the next great invention. So listening to the customer to test and learn. So sometimes celebrate the success together with the failure, because that gives us the insight to pivot and adjust, and how to get to that ultimate solution that addresses the customer needs.
It's a really interesting point that you raised there. And Alex, I don't know if you've got something to add, but with the whole idea of when you have to pivot, how do you know when to draw a line under something? How do you know when enough is enough and you've actually got to completely change the direction you were going in?
So that's a very good question, because when we work with companies and when I work with CEOs, they always ask, Alex, how do I know which idea to pick? My answer is always the same. $1 million question. You don't know, and you should never make the choice. It's not the leadership that picks the ideas. Again, the leadership builds the ecosystem. So what do? They enable teams to experiment all the time and bring evidence to the table. Because actually the idea doesn't really matter in innovation. What matters, can the team turn an idea into a value proposition that customers care about, and can it create value for the business? You only do that by experimenting. So as a leadership team, you're not going to judge the idea, you're going to judge the evidence that supports the idea. How many customers actually have that problem? How many are willing to pay for that? So you build a system where you have different KPIs. You're not investing based on your experience and your opinion. You're investing based on how much evidence is the team bringing to the table. And you need to be willing, this is the hard part, to kill ideas. So generally the rule is, and this is where it's really hard for established companies, is that 1 out of 10 projects will succeed. And you need to, let me not call it kill, it's very brutal, successfully retire 9 projects. And that's hard. I mean, who of you here in the room, knows already that you're working on a project that's not going to succeed? Hands up. Come on, be honest. Well, you have colleagues around you, so it's a bit tricky, right? So why does this happen? Not because the teams are not smart, but we have processes in companies that are geared towards execution. Executing ideas is what feels safe. But in innovation, it's not about execution, it's about adapting. Sorry, it was a bit long. I get passionate about this.
No, it's great. That's what we love. We love to hear the passion. And I can also see, Barry, you're shaking your head there in agreement. But I suppose innovation can sometimes be quite challenging for people, can't they? I mean, how do you go about addressing this head on what you do at Industrial Automation?
So I just can underwrite what has been said before. So you really need to make a culture where bottom up the ideas are flowing, and then in principle from the leadership team to say, okay, what are the boundaries and what are the rules here? And what we usually say, we also like to eat our own food. So whatever we do as solution, it goes usually into manufacturing, industrial applications. Mm-hmm. And we are in the very privileged situation. We have 300 factories. We have 80,000 people working there. And in principle, what we did 5 years ago, we started our Smart Factory program. And when a factory was applying certain KPIs in quality and how they were really bringing the productivity forward, they could apply as a smart factory and choose what kind of solutions they want to apply to really become even more advanced in digitalization. And this bottom-up approach, and on the other side, setting clear criteria when to kind of apply for it, was very successful. So everybody wanted to be a smart factory, and we learned a lot. And that's also where the failure came. We also found out that some of our solutions are really not worth the money we have put them into. And this learning quick, failing quick is, I have to say, really not part of the European culture. So in India or also in the US, we are much faster. Here in Europe, we struggle a lot to really kill something.
Yeah, we put it in a nicer terminology. What was it?
Successfully retire.
Successfully retire,
yeah,
right.
correct.
Remember that when you get pulled into a meeting and they use the word successfully retire. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, it's okay. He said it very well.
Brilliant. So, Wendy, I mean, tell us as well about the challenges that you're facing, and I suppose what's the biggest focus for your team right now to keep going with this innovation?
So rather than a challenge, I like the word focus much better. So I would say the key that we're focusing on is absolute customer centricity. And what I mean by that is when we innovate, when we come up with new ideas, it's because we're trying to address a customer need, whether it's a need that we know or unmet need or even an undiscovered need. So using Zurich as an example, we're an insurance company. Traditionally, we pay claims. So as we innovate, we get into service area. So how do we deliver that consumer standard experience? So all of us today are used to experience such as using Uber, whatnot. So how do we innovate, maintain that seamless customer journey so it's easy to use? Because I think as Steve said earlier, only when it's easy to use, customer will use it. So how do we innovate with that idea in mind? Make sure that we understand and focus on the customer problems that we're trying to solve. And at Zurich Global Ventures, that's what we're trying to do, not just paying the claims, but understanding different elements of individuals' life, whether it's how you travel or how you manage your digital health and well-being, or how you engage with your colleagues and your employers. So how do we seamlessly understand people's needs and how do we seamlessly address those needs? I think is the biggest challenge in that consumer standard of experience that people nowadays expect.
So always put the customer at the core of any problem and innovation. Brilliant, thank you. We are going to have a final question here, but I would like each of you to answer it. And that is really getting your advice, particularly, obviously, to give to the room, but bearing in mind particularly our 12 championship winners here today. What advice would you give to support the term that we keep referring to, innovation culture?
It's a difficult question.
You can give more than one piece of advice if you like.
I think what is really important, we have a lot contact to startups. So we incubate a lot with startups. But for instance, when we do a new business like cybersecurity and OT, we work very hard together with startups to really make the business case. Now, the best CEOs usually are the best salespeople. So when we have a startup where the CEO is also the guy who can develop the business, who is pushing it forward aggressively, the success is much higher than, as Steve was saying before, if you are just the engineer who has invented it. So you need someone in the company who is really driving forward the business, at least from my experience.
Alex?
I can only support that. I would add to the role of the entrepreneur to the startup. You're going to look silly, stupid 1,000 times, and people are going to tell you. And that's just part of the job. So as an entrepreneur and innovator, you just need to take it in. And you learn from it. So you selectively listen, you adapt. But even if you fail, if your startup goes belly up, there's the next startup. So it's part of the innovator and entrepreneur's job to look silly and to get your project successfully retired. That's okay. So that's how it should be. And you just need to feel comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, do something else.
I would add that this idea of ecosystem that was brought up before. So certainly we heard a lot about working with the startups, bringing new ideas into a mature company such as Zurich. But also in the ecosystem, do not forget about the internal capabilities. So Zurich, you see the 150 years behind us. So the expertise, the relationship, the market knowledge, that is a very strong advantage that we as a large company have. And working with startups, how we bring the two together into the equation, I think is a unique advantage that we can have by working together in that partnership.
Absolutely, brilliant. Thank you very much, all three of you. The good news is we've now got the opportunity for our audience to ask you some more questions as well.
Hi, I'm Sabine van der Linden. I'm CEO and founder of Alchemy Group, a longtime partner of Zurich. Innovation cultures require a number of things. They are very fun, but they require talent for failure, tolerance for failure, and also a willingness to experiment. How have you seen businesses scale and succeed over the long term? I would like to start with Alex.
It's a very good question. And that's my constant battle every day. So it starts from the top, right? And you need to just accept that there are two cultures under one roof. An execution culture, we call that exploit, and an exploration culture where you innovate. And they need to be in peace and harmony. And the most important part is that they actually have very explicitly different KPIs. So in execution, you're on time, on budget, and you look at the big projects. In innovation, you're looking at evidence, you're judging evidence, and on time, on budget doesn't matter because you're really good at successfully retiring the projects that don't bring evidence to the table, right? So you have very different KPIs. And the same person, let's take the CEO, in the morning is in a mindset of execution, but then knows maybe in the afternoon, meeting with the innovation leaders, they change into the mindset of the exploration leader with completely different KPIs. So that's a bit of, schizophrenic behavior, but you need that. And if you don't have the leadership thinking like that, understanding exploit, explore, it's not going to scale. So that's really, really important. And then you give innovation power to do that with the right KPIs. Then it takes off. Then the bottom up, as you said before, works. But otherwise, it's not possible. So I like to say if the CEO doesn't spend 40% of their time on innovation and you're working in innovation, change your job.
There we go.
Nobody was laughing, so I'm a bit afraid.
That's a lot of time, 40%, isn't it?
I know here it's a good environment.
Is there another question from the audience?
My name is Michael. I'm the COO of LiveWell. So my question is relating to sustainability. So we're obviously very passionate about sustainability. And I would be interested to hear if you are optimistic that we will see innovation that will help us achieve sustainability targets in our everyday life.
Yeah, Barbara, you want to take this one?
Of course, it's close to my heart. So I'm in sustainability since I did my mechanical engineering studies. And some of you might remember we had an energy crisis also in the 70s, 80s. The barrel price was at $36, $39. And Switzerland made a lot of measures to bring down the energy consumption, specifically in buildings and these kind of things. And I think now we have the opportunity of a similar innovation push. So we have all in front of us, again, the wintertime, high energy costs, all at once. Everyone wants to have a heat pump in his garden. Everyone wants to really think about solar on his rooftop. And I would say the technology usually is here, but the way how to get this technology then in a way that it really saves energy, that it distributes energy in a more efficient way, that will come now. So is this crisis we are in good? No, in principle, I don't like to have a war in Ukraine. This is very tragic. But on the other side, it's also now a big opportunity to bring in acceleration in sustainability that we were missing for many years. So from my point of view, we have to catch up on the last 25 years now. The technologies are here. The innovation will be how do we implement them and in what kind of speed we are able to implement them. And the speed now is the pressure we feel. At least from my point of view.
Of course.
Sorry, if I may to add, I absolutely agree. I think sustainability is not a nice to have, it's a must have. And I go back to the point I mentioned earlier about customer centricity. So this is what a customer, the world wants and needs. So what that particular solution is, I don't think I have an answer for that, but I think it's embedded in everyone's day-to-day life. So whether you look at how you live your life, how you engage with different aspects of service provider or your workforce, this is an important element that has to be considered and included in all of our solution. So it's a holistic solution that we look at sustainability rather than individual product-based or line of business, I would think.
Yeah, just one thing to add to these perspectives is I'm confident that innovation will help if the financial sector actually invests more aggressively in sustainability. So if you just take the biggest funds in the world, if they came together and, there's a little bit of a move away from that for whatever reason, right? But if we actually got the biggest funds together to invest in sustainability aggressively, things would change dramatically because the innovation is there. We have great venture capital funds, pension funds, and so are doing their job, but not enough. So without that, because money is an engine of innovation, right? So money does matter in this case. So we need that to have the innovation part work.
To speed things up. And we have time for one quick question.
Hello, my name is Sarah Brady, and
corporate communications, in the crowded space of innovation, where money is the engine, where does design and design thinking, user experience sit in all of this? Because often in the first world versus the third world, it's the way a product looks and feels rather than what it does for us. And I wonder whether you have any opinions on the value of design in your innovations.
It's really, really important, and we forget about it a lot. You were mentioning customer centricity. So today, when we think about how we do a customer journey, it's on the beginning of every project. It should be. In practice, it's not. In practice, someone has a brilliant idea and comes with this idea, and then usually I push back and say, okay, how many customers have you really discussed this solution with? Are they really going to work with a laptop in the factory, or is this even not possible because it might be stolen? So the customer journey should be always at the beginning. Are we really good at it? Not always. Now I'm talking about ourselves. But I know a lot of companies where the success has been really built on putting this user experience at the beginning of the development.
Absolutely. I think innovation is not successful if no one uses it. And people will only use it if it is easy to use, it's seamless. So I think quoting the retire ideas concept, I think a lot of those is because if we did not put customer experience, user experience at the front, at the beginning of the consideration, then those ideas won't work. Because the KPIs we're looking at when you innovate is the user feedback. That's how you test and learn. So I absolutely agree that needs to be at the front, and I think we need to be very diligent about that.
I'd add one more. I know we're running out of time, but there's one more perspective here around design thinking, which user centricity is one. But who of you in the room has a design education, industrial design, architecture? Okay, we have very few people who are, have the best potential to be good innovators. Because what designers actually do when you go to design school is you ask, what could be? In business school, you ask, which decision should I make? It's obviously a bit not as black and white. And if you ask what could be, you're going to explore multiple possibilities, and you're going to experiment and test around the user or customer, and the best one will emerge. But if you don't ask what could be, you're never going to innovate as much as you could. That's why I'm in love with design school, even if I didn't go there. But I would ask anybody who wants to become an innovator not to think just technology, think design school and design process.
Fascinating. I mean, what a brilliant way to end the session. I think leaving us with lots of inspiring thoughts, lots to think about as well, and lots to question. So a big, big thank you. And also, of course, thank you to our audience for all of your questions. I think we should say a big thank you to Dr. Barbara Fry, Wendy Liu, and Dr. Alex Osterwalder. Huge thank you for joining us today. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this edition of Zurich Talks, Future Innovation. Got to say a massive, massive thank you to all of our guests. Thank you for joining us as well. We really have sort of aimed to make sure that Zurich is hosting this conversation and the debate around topics which are going to impact our future in the short, in the medium, and in the long term. And I think what could be more important than ensuring that our world grows, that it flourishes, and that it innovates to ultimately create a brighter future for all of us to really enjoy. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, it is Zurich's 150th year, a very special year indeed. So hopefully you're going to leave feeling inspired, optimistic, and excited about the future. And that's a big, big thank you and goodbye from me. Thank you very much.